I was halfway through patching drywall at the hardware store I owned when the text came in, "I'm leaving. Moving to Tampa with Danny. She's 22. Also, I drained our joint account LOL. I didn't drop the putty knife. Didn't blink. I just wiped my hands on my jeans, glanced over at the customer looking at drill bits, and went back to helping him pick out the right one. My wife of 14 years, Gina, was officially gone. And the LOL at the end of it? That was the cherry on top. Like she thought it was some kind of joke. I'm sure she imagined I was cussing and throwing tools, losing my mind, but I didn't. I calmly rang up the sale, locked the doors, and went home. The signs had been there. Late work trips that never showed up on her company's payroll, selfies at the gym, new clothes, and a sudden obsession with TikTok. 3 months ago, I found 2 wine glasses on a hotel receipt, and that was it. I opened a separate account at a different bank that night, started tracking everything. Call it paranoia, but I didn't see the point in being blindsided. She was gone, and she'd made sure to rub it in. But here's the thing. Nothing in her message surprised me. I'd already seen it coming. Gina texted again. "Don't beg. Danny and I leave tomorrow. I'll send for my stuff later, Danny." That was the office assistant I'd met once. Too eager, always laughing a little too hard at Gina's bad jokes, touching her arm in ways that weren't quite professional. The thought of her didn't sting anymore. It just felt boring. I didn't reply to the text. Instead, I pulled my phone away and dialed my lawyer, the one I'd hired weeks ago, after I'd started noticing strange Venmo transfers with labels like consulting and marketing ideas. "It's time," I said when she picked up. She didn't hesitate. "I've had the papers ready. You want her served in Tampa?" "No rush," I said. "Let her feel like she won. Let her think she's in control for a while longer." Another text came through as soon as I hung up. "At least you still have your little store. Something to keep you busy now that you're pushing 50. That stung more than I'd expected. Little store, she called it. Never could understand what it was worth to me. She always thought it was just a hobby, something I did to pass the time. But that little store had doubled in revenue over the last 2 years. I'd worked my ass off to get it there, and it wasn't just a place I sold tools and hardware. It was my life, my pride. It was bigger than her, bigger than any of us. I swallowed the bitterness in my throat, poured myself a glass of bourbon, and grabbed the file. The one stuffed with receipts, bank logs, and screenshots, proof of every damn thing I had learned about her and Danny. Every transfer, every lie, the twisted little story she'd written for herself. Then I called the credit card company. My hands were steady, though I could feel my pulse in the back of my throat. "Yes, I need to cancel a card. Fraudulent charges, 2 first-class tickets to Tampa, Royal Surfside Hotel." The rep on the other end asked if I had evidence. I had more than enough. "Sure do. Text from my wife bragging about it. I can email them over." A few minutes later, the charges were reversed. The card was killed. I watched as more of Gina's texts came in, each one more clueless and arrogant than the last. "You can stay at the house for now. I'll let you," like she was doing me a favor. Forgot to mention I owned that house. It was in my name alone, every brick and beam of it. She wasn't listed on the deed. I woke up to my phone buzzing again. Gina's name lit up the screen. It was early, still dark outside, but I already felt awake, ready. This wasn't about being angry anymore. It was about making sure she couldn't take anything else from me. "Why the hell did you cancel the tickets?" she texted. "We were supposed to leave today." I didn't respond right away. Instead, I opened up the credit card app, verified the charges were gone, and checked the bank account again. Everything was in order. A new text. "You can't do this. We were supposed to be done. I need that trip to Tampa. We're starting over." You should have seen that I knew she thought she was in control, but that was the thing about running a store, about being responsible for everything, from inventory to payroll. You get used to seeing the bigger picture. I was done letting her drag me along, pretending like I wasn't 5 steps ahead. I opened my email, checked the evidence file, and grabbed a screenshot of the canceled ticket charges. Then I forwarded it to my lawyer. "I'm calling the bank," I texted Gina, "and I've already filed a report about the fraudulent charges." Another buzz. "Don't you dare make this messier than it needs to be." I leaned back in the chair, rubbing my eyes. I didn't want to feel relief. I wanted to feel vindicated. But it was there, creeping in. A calm, like I'd just cut the rope that had been pulling me down for years. The text kept coming. You're just going to try and bleed me dry, aren't you? It's not like you even need the money." She still didn't get it. I locked the phone, put it on the table, and poured another drink. There were still so many things to do, so many moves left to make, and as much as it felt good to watch her unravel, I knew I had to stay steady. I wasn't done yet. A few more minutes passed, then came the final text for the night. "We'll figure out a fair split of the business." I let out a soft laugh. The business. My business. I saved the message, logged it into my folder. Just another scrap of evidence, just another piece of the puzzle that would make her look foolish in front of anyone who mattered. The next buzz was from her sister, Amanda. "She says you're being spiteful. She just wants to be happy." I leaned back in the chair, clicked the message open, and didn't even try to mask my frustration. I tapped out a response. Did she mention draining our account and booking a trip with my money? Then I hit send. Silence. For a long minute, the phone stayed still. No response from Amanda. No snarky comeback from Gina. Just the steady thrum of the morning outside the window. The distant noise of traffic, like the world kept spinning even if my own had just been shoved off its axis. I put the phone down and went to the store. By noon, I heard they'd ended up at a dingy roadside motel near the airport. I could picture it perfectly, the stale air, the dim lighting, the faint smell of mildew. Gina, sitting there, probably pissed off that her carefully laid out plans were falling apart, while Danny, the eager little assistant, stared at her phone, trying to figure out how to fix it. Neither one of them had the sense to check if their credit cards were maxed before they tried to use them. Her clean break wasn't so clean after all. I didn't rush to respond. I just let them stew in it. Meanwhile, I rang up sales, went through the new inventory, made sure the shelves were stocked. I even had a few customers ask for advice on drills, which was a nice distraction. The rhythm of the store, the clicks of the register, the hum of the fluorescent lights above. This was my world. This was where I had control. My lawyer messaged at some point during the day. Emergency hearing set for Monday. We're moving to freeze all joint assets good. Let her sit in the mess she'd made. Let her get that little taste of what it felt like to be the one scrambling, the one who didn't have all the answers, the one who didn't get to walk away scot-free. It was all coming together. The store was thriving. The court dates were lined up. Gina's flight plan was already falling apart. Everything she'd done to hurt me, every lie she'd told, every moment she'd spent thinking she could just walk away without consequence, it was all going to blow up in her face. And I was right here, steady, letting her burn. Gina texted me the next morning. "You're not as smart as you think. I have copies of the store's finances. Half of it is mine. I didn't even flinch." I forwarded the text to my lawyer, knowing exactly what her response would be. A few seconds later, she wrote back, "Let her try." Her little beach escape was already crumbling around her, piece by piece. Word spread fast. I heard from a couple of mutuals that Danny was posting selfies from the motel, talking about how weird the vibe was, and how she was dealing with older men lying. She tagged Gina in one of the posts, like they were just two teenagers figuring out life, not partners in a betrayal. I didn't bite, not yet. I stayed quiet, watching it all unravel from the sidelines. I didn't need to make a move. The storm was coming for her, and it was already building. Then came the bombshell. My lawyer sent me screenshots from Danny's Instagram. One post had her smiling in front of a crappy motel sign, captioned, "Leaving him was worth it. Can't believe I'm with someone who gets me." And there, in the comments, was Gina. She didn't even try to hide it. She'd written, "Couldn't have done it without your help, babe." Took his card for the flight. I stared at it for a long time, letting it settle in. Gina had practically handed us everything we needed on a silver platter. My lawyer had everything now. Proof of financial misconduct, proof of infidelity, proof that everything she'd done was as reckless as it was selfish. By Monday, I was ready. The court date was set, and I could already feel the tension in the air when I walked into the building. Gina walked in first, heels clicking on the cold marble floor, like she thought she was the one in charge. Her posture was stiff, but she held her head high, like she was still in control of the situation. Danny trailed behind, dressed in yoga pants and scrolling through her phone, looking like she was trying to avoid eye contact with the rest of the world. I couldn't help but feel a little satisfaction at how out of place they both looked. The courtroom was quiet when the judge walked in. He barely even looked at them, flipping through the paperwork on his desk, like he already knew everything he needed to. I stood off to the side, my lawyer beside me, watching them fidget in their seats. I could see Gina's eyes darting back and forth, her heels clicking on the floor again. But it didn't matter. She'd already lost. My lawyer started talking, laid it all out in a clear, methodical way. Separate business, deeded home, and clear evidence of financial misconduct. She handed over the receipts, the bank logs, the screenshots, and the hotel charges, everything Gina had tried to cover up. The judge's eyes flicked to Gina for just a second before he went back to the papers in front of him, his face unreadable. Gina's lawyer tried to push back, but it didn't take long before the judge shut him down. "You're asking for half of a business that's been separate for years," he said, his voice low but sharp. "You're also asking to ignore a history of financial misconduct. There's no case here." Gina didn't say a word, neither did Danny. The room was silent, except for the shuffle of papers and the low hum of the air conditioning. When the judge wrapped up the hearing, he ordered all joint assets frozen immediately, and that Gina had to return the funds she'd taken from the account, or face contempt charges. Her face turned an interesting shade of red, and for the first time in a long while, I saw her look truly caught off guard. Outside the courtroom, I passed Danny on the steps. She looked down and didn't speak, just kept her phone clutched in her hands as if she were trying to disappear into it. Gina was a few steps behind her, glaring at me like she could still make me feel small. "You've ruined me," she said, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and something else. Desperation, maybe. I didn't even hesitate. "No, you did that yourself. I just refused to go down with you." And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a real weight lift off my chest. This time, she wasn't the one holding the power. Weeks passed, and Gina tried everything. She'd text me claiming she'd helped with branding, like she had anything to do with the store's growth. She said she gave me emotional support, like that mattered now, but none of it held up. My records were solid. Every email, every phone call, every decision I'd made was documented. I was ready for her to throw anything she could my way. But it wasn't enough. Danny dumped her, left town without a word. I wasn't surprised. The whole thing had been a mess from the start. Gina had gotten what she thought was the perfect rebound, but it had cracked wide open as soon as the lies piled up. Gina moved back in with her mom. I'd hear about it from mutuals, how she was whining online about depression and feeling lost. She tried to get her friends to rally behind her, but that fell apart too. As soon as they saw the texts and evidence, they started backing off. They didn't want to touch her with a 10-foot pole. She tried playing the victim card, but it didn't stick. I heard she got demoted at work too. HR had opened an investigation into her relationship with Danny. Word was spreading, and it wasn't the kind of word she wanted. Everything she thought was hers was crumbling, piece by piece. Meanwhile, my store was thriving. The sales kept climbing, and online orders doubled. People were starting to notice. Local papers ran a story about how I'd bounced back. The headline said something like, "Local business owner turns betrayal into success." I didn't ask for the press, but it felt good to have the story out there, to show that I wasn't some guy waiting to break. Other business owners started reaching out for advice. One of them, an old guy who ran a construction supply shop, called me out of the blue. "I've been following your story. You've got something," he said. "Help me see how I've been too loose with my own business. You've given me a way to tighten things up." I smiled. That was the real win. Not the press, not the customers, but the knowledge that I could pass on something valuable to someone else. That's what made all the difference. One day, a regular customer stopped by the store to pick up some supplies. He'd been through his own divorce years ago, and we'd chatted a few times over the months, just small talk, while I rang up his purchases. This time, though, he said, "You know, my ex did the same thing. Thought I'd break. But you proved we can rebuild. Your story helped me see it." I looked up at him, unsure of what to say. I wanted to tell him that it wasn't just about business. It wasn't about the store. It was about survival. But I just smiled and nodded. "We rebuild," I said. "One day at a time." That was the truth. You don't have to get loud. You don't have to make a scene. You just have to be prepared. Stay steady, hold your ground, and let life show you what it's made of. 6 months after the divorce, I opened a second location. The store was doing well, and I'd built it all from the ground up. I wasn't slowing down. I had no reason to. But Gina? She was still living in the old house, temporarily, since I hadn't forced her out yet. She'd been applying for jobs she wasn't even close to being qualified for, and even tried to appeal the settlement. The judge tossed it out without much consideration. He said she was abusing the system, which didn't surprise me. She'd never been one to play by the rules, just bend them until they snapped. One afternoon, Amanda, Gina's sister, came by the store. I hadn't seen her in a while. She walked in like she was nervous, looking around at the shelves of tools and inventory like it was all so foreign to her. She grabbed a power drill, came up to the counter, and set it down, her eyes flicking up to meet mine. "I'm sorry," she said, the words heavy in her mouth. "She fooled us all." I nodded, a little surprised by the apology, but I wasn't angry with her. She'd been caught up in it too, just like I had. "Don't worry about it," I said, ringing up the drill. "She fooled me too." Once there was a quiet pause between us, the sound of the register the only thing filling the space. She picked up the drill, and I could tell she wanted to say more, to ask questions, to try and make sense of everything that had happened, but she didn't. She just gave me a small, tired smile, paid, and walked out. It was all too easy to get lost in the aftermath. But the truth was, I was better off now, and I knew it. 1 year after the divorce, I found myself speaking at a small business panel. The topic was how to separate personal life from business. I could feel the eyes of the crowd on me as I spoke, my voice steady, but with a quiet strength that came from having lived through it. "My ex-wife said I was paranoid for keeping my finances separate," I told them. Turns out I was prepared. A few people chuckled. I couldn't help but smile. Yeah, paranoid? Funny how that word felt different now. Someone in the audience raised their hand. "Do you have any regrets?" I took a breath, letting the question hang in the air for a second. It wasn't a loaded question, but it still felt like one. "Sure," I said. "I regret not trusting my gut sooner. If I had, maybe I'd have seen things for what they really were, instead of hanging on longer than I should have." The room went quiet for a second, like people were taking that in. It wasn't a glamorous answer, but it was honest. I wasn't going to sugarcoat it. That fall, I opened my third store. Business was growing, the foundation solid. It felt different now, stronger. I'd built it with my own hands, brick by brick, lesson by lesson. But the real shift was in how I saw things. Not just the store, but myself. I wasn't the guy who'd let people walk all over him anymore. The grand opening was buzzing with excitement. The place was packed with customers, and I was busy greeting them, making sure everything was running smoothly. I was standing by the checkout counter when I saw her, Danny. She walked in like she hadn't just been part of one of the most painful chapters of my life. When our eyes met, I recognized her instantly. She didn't seem like the confident, brash woman from before. There was something smaller about her now, almost embarrassed. She hesitated for a moment, then walked over to me. "I owe you an apology," she said, her voice quiet. She didn't seem like she had an agenda. There was no bravado. She just looked worn. I stayed quiet, waiting for her to continue. "She told me you were cold, controlling." She paused, like she was weighing her words. "But after 2 weeks, she started doing the same to me." I nodded, letting her words settle. It was almost strange to hear it from her. This woman who had once sided with Gina, who'd been part of all the lies. But now she sounded just like someone who'd been burned. "Yeah," she said, laughing a little, but it wasn't a happy laugh. "After she asked me to co-sign a loan." I blinked. That was a new one. I wasn't surprised, but it was still jarring to hear. I let her finish, but I wasn't angry anymore. "She really never changes, does she?" Danny added, her voice quieter now. I looked at her for a moment, trying to decide how to respond. "You figured it out," I said finally. Danny gave me a small, almost sad smile. "Yeah. Took me long enough. After she left, my store manager came over, a little confused." "Was that the girl?" I leaned against the counter, watching the door close behind her. "No," I said. "That was just another person who learned the hard way." He looked at me for a second, then nodded. "Well, at least she apologized." "Doesn't change anything," I said. "But it's something, I guess." I didn't feel any real satisfaction in her apology. It wasn't closure. It wasn't a win. It was just another moment, another reminder that the best revenge is living well, and I was living better than I ever had before. 2 years to the day after Gina's text, I opened my fourth location. The business had grown. We now had 28 employees, strong online revenue, and had been featured in 3 national trade magazines. Things were moving, and they were moving fast. I'd built something solid, something real. Gina, she was still living with her mom, still blaming everyone but herself. I heard from a friend of hers who forwarded me a post she'd made. I gave everything to someone who didn't appreciate me. I didn't even get angry. I just let it roll off. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd drained everything, including her own dignity, and still couldn't see where she went wrong. Her mom came into the store last week. I don't know why I didn't see her coming. She didn't buy anything. Just walked in, stood at the counter, looking at the shelves like she was trying to gather her thoughts. I didn't say anything at first. She broke the silence after a while. "She says she misses you," she offered quietly. I nodded, the thought of Gina lingering in the air. "She misses the stability," I said, the words leaving my mouth almost without thought. I wasn't angry, just numb to it all. Her mom didn't respond. She just turned and left the store without buying a single thing. I let it go. I didn't need anything from her. I didn't need anything from Gina either. I kept a frame print in my office. It was a screenshot of Gina's first message. "I'm leaving. LOL below." It was my first business award from the Chamber of Commerce. My assistant walked by one day, caught sight of it, and laughed. "Should we add the LOL to our next store banner?" she teased. I sipped my coffee, a smile tugging at my lips. "No," I said. That was her punchline. I'm the one who got the last word. It was true. In the end, she left thinking I'd crumble, but instead, I built something bigger, something real. And every month, I added more to it. One sale, one customer, one good decision at a time. Gina had thought she could break me, but all she did was set me free.